preparing students for jobs that don't yet exist so they can use technologies that haven't been invented in order to solve problems that have not yet been identified.
In the 1800s in the United States, you had most young people were children of farmers. They worked in the fields. When somebody proposed that America institute a system of public education for all young people, the poor parents said, no, we can't allow our kids to go to school. They need to work, otherwise we starve. We don't have enough hands to work in the fields. So they opposed public education. The people who favored it were wealthy, and the people who made it happen were business. In the late 1800s, the business community said, you know what, all these kids are coming into the factory, but they're coming from the farms, and they're not good factory workers. They come late to work. You can't count on them. They're not good. What we need, they said, and these are the actual words that they used, we want a system that will create, quote, industrial discipline, end quote. What was industrial discipline? Industrial discipline meant you showed up on time, and you did the same work again and again and again and again, just as you did on an assembly line. What happened was we designed schools that actually resemble the factory. If you look at our schools even today, they simulate factories. Kids have to arrive on time. Why is that? If you, as one person, comes late to the assembly line, you might have 1,000 workers standing by doing nothing, waiting for this function to be done before they can work. So the cost of the workers coming late is extremely expensive. And in the U.S. we have many thousands, hundreds of thousands of kids who are taken by bus. They're preparing the children to commute to work in the factory. Now what's happening? Now more and more people aren't working like that. They're working at home, or they work at different hours, strange hours and so forth, and you don't need everybody showing up at exactly the same time. So what we have are schools that were literally designed to provide the workforce for an industrial age economy. And they do that very well, but that's not the kind of economy that we have anymore. And therefore, the entire system is obsolete. We were waiting for Bill Gates to say something. And about 2 years ago, he finally said the right words. He said, we cannot reform our education system, we must replace it.
Take a moment and remember your favorite teacher. Now imagine that teacher could reach not 30 kids in a classroom, but millions of students all over the world. That's exactly what Sal Khan is doing on his website, Khan Academy. With digital lessons and simple exercises, he's determined to transform how we learn at every level.
The ideal direction is using something like Khan Academy for every student to work at their own pace, to master concepts before moving on, and then the teacher using Khan Academy as a tool so that you can have a room of 20 or 30 kids all working on different things, but you can still kind of administrate that chaos.
Log in and then open Khan Academy.
Right away, you notice something different. There are no textbooks and no teacher lecturing at the blackboard. Instead, students watch Khan videos at home the night before to learn a concept. Then they come to class the next day and do problem sets called modules to make sure they understand. If they get stuck, they can get one-on-one help from the teacher. Less lecturing, more interaction. What you think of as homework, you do at school. And schoolwork, you do at home. Khan Academy has created a dashboard so teachers like Courtney Cadwell can monitor each student's progress.
So right now they're all working on things and you can see that real time.
Yes.
So as you sit here and look at the dashboard, you see how the students are doing individually, you see how they're doing as a whole class,
Yep.
and you can figure out who you need to help.
Exactly. And here I can track their progress over time. I can see who's rushing ahead, who's lagging behind. I can see if they begin to stagnate.
A blue bar indicates a student knows a concept. Orange, they're still working on it. But if a red bar pops up,
Is kind of the red flag to tell me, hey, it's time to step in and intervene. And I can see
Oh, so you can see not only that it's red, but specifically what the
what
problem
they
is.
missed, and you can see the number of seconds they spent on each problem. I feel like I'm using my time more effectively with my students because instead of making the assumption that the entire class is weak in this area and I need to spend time reviewing this, I can really pull those 3, 4, 5 kids, do a mini workshop, address those needs, and allow those other students to move on to problem-solving activities or project-based learning with their peers.
I've seen some subset of teachers who say, oh, what is this video thing? You know, live human interaction is important. And the reason why that bothers me a little bit is that, no, that's exactly what we're saying. In fact, we exactly agree with you that what we're trying to do is take the passivity out of the classroom so that you as a teacher will have more flexibility.
Does it minimize the role of the teacher? Does it make it less impactful?
No, I think it's the exact opposite. We kind of view teachers playing the role of more like a coach or a mentor, which once again, I personally believe is a much higher value thing than a lecturer.
Eric Schmidt, the pioneering chairman of Google, says he's seen a lot of failed attempts to integrate technology into education, but says what Sal Khan is doing is different.
Many people think they're doing something new, but they're not really changing the approach. Whereas with Saul, he said, what we're going to do is not only are we going to make these interesting 10-minute videos, but we're going to measure whether it works or not.
He was the guy to sort of make this happen. Why do you think it was him and not some person who was an educator or who had a background in this area?
Innovation never comes from the established institutions. It's always a graduate student or a crazy person or somebody with a great vision. Saul is that person in education, in my view.
I doubt that schools will go away. After all, they aren't just about learning, but also freeing parents to work in the economy while their feral children are turned into civilized adults. But schools will be radically different.
What if one day learning could be just a game, with challenges instead of lessons and scorecards replacing end-of-term reports? The formula for a successful video game could well be the key to teaching in the future, as education evolves into so-called gamification.
My vision of the future is that we're preparing kids for 21st century success by bringing tools into the classroom like video games and engage them at the level they're used to being engaged outside of the classroom, and that we're continuously assessing them in real-world, real-life experiences. And I think when you look at the gameplay that's happening with teachers playing games on their mobile phones and just the whole impact of games becoming part of our mainstream society, it's much easier now for everyone to imagine games at home in the classroom.
Video games are actually among the most powerful learning tools that have ever been created, because if you look at a child when they first pick up a video game, they'll start and they'll play for 5 minutes and then they'll fail. Pick themselves up, start again, play for 10 minutes. They fail. And they will do this 500 times before they finally succeed and master the video game. Learning things all along the way, completely self-motivated.
We think there's a blurry line between play and learning, and that there should be an even blurrier line between those two things. When a learning experience is playful and exploration-oriented, it puts people's minds into a relaxed state where learning actually can happen the easiest.
How do you keep a kid engaged? How do you keep them interested? That is all psychology. When the gamers went and they created the best video games that ever existed, they didn't sit down and say, hey, you know, what is the cognitive science behind this? They didn't do that. They just did it. They created it. And now all the cognitive scientists are coming back and saying, what did you do? Because that's actually one of the most motivating, engaging media we've ever seen. And the video game programmers all said, I just created something that I would want to play.
So game-based assessment means that actually within the gameplay, you're assessing how the player is doing. When you think of games, they are already a series of choices and a series of assessments around how a player is doing. You can't move to the next level unless you've learned what you are supposed to learn from the game, and that we've assessed what you've learned from the game and you're able to move on to the next level.
So think about it this way. School will change more in the next 10 years than it has in the last 100. And social networks and the internet and even video games will play as much of a part in education in the next century as textbooks.